Catapulted Commissions family. What's up, team? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Catapulted Commissions podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Garcia. So today's guest comes near and dear to me. Scoggins is an award-winning, successful, serial, multi-million-dollar entrepreneur of multiple businesses. He's a highly sought-after motivational speaker, host of the hit podcast Unstoppable, and creator of Unstoppable Solutions, offering hope, encouragement, and empowering education to aspiring leaders and early-stage entrepreneurs in any area of their life and business. Now, let me say this to you, Catapulted Commissions family. If you've been following the journey, you would know that this entrepreneur that Steven speaks to kind of falls into us. If you've been with me, you've followed this early stage and in trying to develop thought leadership in this space over the past 4 years. So by no means am I here to say that I'm the best in the world, but I'm learning from some of the best in the world, and Steven Scoggins is one of those people. So Steven, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, G, what's up, baby? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm glad to have you here, brother. So here's the deal. You have built not one, but multiple ventures that have gone on to be successful and profitable. Mm-hmm. And it's not a secret, right? In today's day and age and market, running a successful, profitable business, I would argue that the amount of people we see that run businesses that are quote unquote profitable online aren't really as profitable as we anticipate. It's almost like you pick up this hidden curtain behind this entrepreneurship journey. You, however, you're living proof of it, living testament of it. You've built it multiple times. I'd love to hear your story of overcoming the resilience to do that, because I will share my personal. We talk offline. Building Catapulted Commissions has not been a straight line up. There've been a lot of ups and downs. So I'd love to hear your background a little bit on one, the resilience and how you developed this, resilience or mindset to build multiple companies. And then later on, I'd love to talk some tactics on how did that come to life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's really three things, right? So first of all, while on paper, I've done a lot of incredible things and been very blessed and very successful. I will tell you in reality, while I've been successful, it has come at the cause of pain, mistakes, and bumping my head along the way. And I think every entrepreneur needs to understand that no matter what type of way you're building a digital business, a virtual, physical brick and mortar, whatever your modality is, it doesn't matter. Entrepreneurs, by definition, are more resilient than the failures that they incur that ultimately lead them to the foundations of their success. So for example, my first business that I started in 98, I was unfortunately homeless at the time, mainly because I was an ignorant doofus, and made a lot of bad decisions and with money specifically, and then kind of relationships. That business taught me how to use my hands, which taught me how to use my head, which later taught me how to use my heart. Now, throughout the course of my journey, I've faced things like obviously homelessness, dyslexia, ADHD, high school dropout, embezzlement, right? I mean, there's been a lot of significant things. COVID, 2008 downturn. There's like all these different things. And at the end of the day, if you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to first decide you're committed, right? So I had to commit to the fact that I was going to build an organization piece by piece, brick by brick. And rather than focus on how slowly it was happening, I focused on how much impact I could make in the moment. And I think by doing that, you can really really stretch things out. The second thing that I find is you got to surround yourself with a lot of fantastic people. As a high school dropout, as someone who only has a GED in education, there's absolutely no reason I should have 9-figure businesses. None. It doesn't make logical sense until you understand that I've been surrounded by people who have done incredibly well in business, but also have incredibly high levels of character along the way. Steve Myrick, my first mentor, he's the guy that told me a long time ago, hey man, the difference between a rich man and a poor man is the way they think. Do you want to think like me or do you want to think like your dad? Right. And my dad made a lot of bad decisions early on, especially when it came to money. Right. So ask yourself kind of really who you're surrounding yourself with and whether or not your pride and your ego is in the way. I find that a lot of times we get these mentors, we get these folks that are willing to pour into us and spend time with us and help encourage us and teach us. And a lot of times like, no, we got to figure it out. I got it. I really feel like entrepreneurship, by definition, the isolation that most entrepreneurs feel around the way is somewhat self-imposed, right? So you got to make sure you're surrounded by the right people. And I think the third thing is you have to understand that what got you to $100,000 or $1 million or 10 million or 50 million or 100 million is not going to be the next thing that's going to have you double in size. You are going to have to pivot and change. And rather than fight against pivoting and changes, you need to absorb it and lean into it. And I think at the end of the day, that is the core reason that many of my ventures became successful. But it's also, even though I might have seven great operating companies, I have also had 10 businesses that didn't work.
Whoa. All right. So let's peel that back there. One statistic, let's just hear that, right? Steven's currently running 7 successful ventures, 10 have failed, right? So if we were to put this on a scoreboard, he's 7 and 10. So, just to say, hey, optics, but no one's paying attention to those 10 because the 7 are making such an impact in the world. And what you stated in terms of growing or kind of having this resilience for entrepreneurship, one, right, commit to the process, right, commit to it's a high level commitment. Surround yourself with people and be adaptable to change. Now, I will say this: surrounding myself with people has been super helpful, but I'll share with you. So let's flip this. I'm kind of in this journey of things that you're saying. So this is me peeling my layers back. There's times where I've had people offer to help or give mentorship or different things, literally free and unsolicited, and incredibly successful people, right? Like these are not like slouches, but there's sometimes an embarrassment of like, my venture's not where I want it to be. It's like I'm not quite ready for that yet. Like, what do you have to say to myself or someone else that's feeling that way? And I had a guest on the show a couple weeks ago that shared with me the exact statement I just shared with you, but was relating that to reaching out to ask me for help. And I'm like, oh man. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I'll tell you this much. All right. So the first, it all comes down to understanding. All right. Here's the deal. The greatest mistake I ever made in business, was trying to build a business without building myself. Continually, routinely. My daily regiment consists of daily professional and personal development every single day. And I don't mean just necessarily I pick up and I read 10 pages. That can help you. No harm, no foul. I mean, what is your intention? I wake up every day, starts with prayer, meditation. I hit the gym. While I'm at the gym, on the way there, at the gym, and on the way out of the gym, I'm indulging on a very specific piece of content. Maybe it's my financial sector, maybe it's my relationship sector and my emotional sector. And what I do a little bit differently than people is I choose one sector a day to focus on. So I'm getting well-rounded growth every day, day in and day out. The reason I do that is because when opportunity knocks and sends it over to me, like one of our mutual good friends, Rory, gives me the opportunity to work with Ed Milet and host his book launch and knock it out of the park. I want to be ready for that. And if I have any limiting beliefs that I'm not worthy of it or I'm not ready for it, then it's going to cause me to pause when I really need to attack, right? I learned a long time ago that there's really 5 phases in business. And when you understand that there's 5 phases in business and you also understand where you are in those phases, it helps you give you insight into how much help you really need. So when advice comes, you're like, okay, yes, dump it on me. Like I would rather just say, yes, teach me everything you know in the whatever time I have with that person. And if I only take one thing off the grocery store shelf to put in my cart, I still took one idea. And one idea can change the game. So when you look at these 5 phases, for example, you got the startup, right? That's hustle, butts, grind. That's you're doing everything. You are legitimately the chief everything officer, like doing everything under the sun. No team. You're the salesperson. You're out there grinding. You're the marketing person. You're the fulfillment person, the finance person, all of it, right? The next stage in the game is the testing phase. Now, typically from startup to testing is $1 to $500,000. Okay. Testing is when, hey, I've got something that's working. Now I need to test it to perfect it. I need to figure out how do I position this product, this good, this service in such a way that allows it to be automated at some point or elevated at some point. Okay. Once you test it and you kind of can fix it a little bit, now you're going to invest in it. Okay. So here's some of the big mistakes I made. And this came straight from mentorship. I went from startup to investing and lost a bunch of money. Okay. I tried to skip the testing phase. I tried to fast forward. I tried to shortcut. There is no shortcut, right? Start up, test it, then invest in it. once you can get to the place where you can trust the investment of your personal time, your time, talent, your resources, your capital, now you're ready to set up the next stages, which you're getting into elimination, automation, and delegation. Eliminating distraction, automating what you can, and delegating what you can. And that allows you to go to the next phase, which is scaling. Okay. The scaling phase ultimately opens up the door, if you do it correctly, to either operate or sell the business. Right. And that's a 50-year track record for some, a 10-year track record for others. All of them have gotten to that place. You take Zuckerberg, like him, hate him, whatever his business model is, and kind of what he's doing with Meta and whatever. The dude started something. He went through the testing phase. He went through the investing phase. He did scale it, and then he had the choice of to sell it or operate it. Right. Your mentorship will come at that specific time. I actually believe that mentors find you when you're ready for the information you're willing to receive, which is why I'm a big proponent of, because there's 5 phases, you need to be willing to receive at all times and get out of your own stinking way. Because the reality is if I had everything I needed to know to be a billionaire, I would be a billionaire, right? I just don't have enough information or education. It's not that I'm not business savvy, and it's not that my mind doesn't work. It's like I just don't know what I don't know. And you look at the top five reasons businesses fail, right? Everything from money to resources to people to team to competitive environment. All of those come down to one thing: the ignorance of the entrepreneur. So how do you fix the ignorance of the entrepreneur? The entrepreneur has to become educated on a regular basis.
Oh man, I love it. I hear what you're saying, and I agree. I think there's a level of education we commit. I like how you have this distinct routine you start your day. As you were saying that right now, it really struck me on my drive this morning. I was like, I was kind of tired, and so I was like, it was raining. I'm like, let me put music to wake me up, and I easily on the 15-minute drive could have consumed a different form of content that would have fed me something. One of the scariest things I heard recently, I can't remember who shared with it, was every time I'm listening to music, I'm not making money. And I was like, and the argument was, if I'm consuming content and I'm choosing what my brain takes in, if it's in line with what I'm doing as a business owner, then I'm making money. If it's just to decompress, then it's not making money. Which brings me to this other challenge. And so, hearing the ventures and the 5 stages, working with the mentors and getting the help, there's another component on this when you're in this startup phase, or I would even say argue startup, scaling, and even full blown at your level where things are running. How do you balance that time, right? From, hey, I'm going to hustle, work. And I have found personally, if I'm late night with my laptop doing work and I'm not spending time, on the couch with my wife watching TV, or if I'm not spending time with my daughters or my son, like, I feel guilty. So now I'm like, okay, how do I balance this to be, one, effective in the journey of entrepreneurship, but 2, to be effective as a husband, as a father, as a family man? Like, where does that
Well, I'm going to jump
balance come
around
in?
here a little bit, because I think that's an emotional trigger that almost every single entrepreneur faces: guilt and
Okay.
shame on a regular basis. Guilt, shame, and isolation, I actually think, are the 3 most dangerous emotions that impede entrepreneurs. And part of that is because, again, it comes down to understanding. Most entrepreneurs go to work, if you will, to their business, and they go through their day. But by the time they get to their end of their day, they have zero idea what just happened, because they spent the entire day putting out fires of some kind, right? Something didn't click, something didn't work. What I've discovered is to make sure that I have 0 distractions throughout the course of the day. Okay. And then because I'm naturally triggered to want to work. I enjoy what I do, from events to creating media to creating my own thought leadership stuff to running businesses and entrepreneurship. I love it all. Okay. So I'm naturally predisposed to want to work. I've gotten to the place now where I have to shut it off. Okay. So here's how I kind of position that. Number 1, make sure that you've eliminated as many distractions in that work window as you can possibly eliminate. Okay. Get off your stupid social media. Stop scrolling. Stop checking how many likes and followers you have during the course of the day. You can do that during your decompressed time. Okay. So that's going to give you, on average, the average American spends 3.5 to 4.5 hours a day in wasted distractionary time before they get home. Okay. So if only half of that is true, That's still 2 hours a day of now productive time that you get to choose. Okay. The second thing that I would do is with that productive time, you've eliminated the distractions. All right. You're setting yourself up to really achieve your objectives. Go after your objectives and burst. Go after a 60-minute grind window and then give yourself a 15-minute break. 60-minute grind window, 15-minute break. 60-minute grind window, 15-minute break. And do that about 4 times throughout the course of the day. Get out. And when I say your break, I don't mean get on your social media or watch some news thing or whatever. I mean, get up, go for a walk, maybe go hang out with your team for a minute, show them that you care about them. Heck, one of the biggest lessons I had to learn is like just pick up my phone and text my wife and say, I love you. Like it wasn't uncommon for me to start my day and end my day, like with no communication whatsoever with my family. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this stuff has to become more intentional over time. So when you eliminate the distractions, you focus and burst, what happens is it forces you to become more selective with your priorities, therefore more productive with your efforts, therefore higher levels of results. So when you get home, you can decompress. So one of the little things that I try to do on a good day, this is one of the things that I do, is I'll do a brain dump before I even walk in the house. Right? I'll answer whatever I can do, get out of my brain, get out of my head, and then you park it. Right? Then you park it. So typically you can't reach me after 7:00. You just can't. And you used to be able to pick up the phone. If you called me at midnight, I had to pick up the phone and answer an email. Right? So it comes down to choice. If you choose to be more selective with your priorities and your productivity, not only you get the added benefit of the results, you're going to find that you've been wasting a lot of time. Therefore, it creates more fires, more confusion, and more reasons for you to just be busy. There's a difference in being busy and being productive, right? You got to figure out a way to be laser focused on what the objective really is. And when you start compressing your time even further and you give yourself a formal boundary of this is where we start and this is where we stop and this is our boundary, first of all, your family's going to appreciate it. But more importantly, the start and stop boundary forces you to be more productive through the course of the day. Forces you to. You have no choice. Have zero choice. You know, the other thing I want to go back to really, really fast. I know you mentioned the 15-minute window for music and stuff like that. I believe that you should be spending about 85% of that, what I call me time, in personal and professional development. You still need an outlet to have an emotional release or a rejuvenation, a replenishment cycle, if you will. For me, I'm a big fan of replenishment cycles. Where do you go? What do you do? Who do you do it with? Which could be just by yourself. Yep. Like, what is your replenishment cycle? What are the things that you do that kind of feed you? For me, I can go hang out at the mountains for 2 hours, right? And it just elevates me. I can go hang out at the movie theater and watch a movie and just decompress and watch a movie. That also replenishes me, right? Sitting down with a pad and a pen replenishes me. If you have the removal of distraction, the focus of priorities, the intentional replenishment, then therefore you're going to have more emotional energy to actually invest yourself. Because I also believe that one of the most important things you will ever need to do in your life is to take your emotional intensity, okay, and make sure that it's aligned with your aspirational identity. If your emotional intensity is not aligned with your aspirational identity, you're going to be naturally distracted and off course, and your family's going to feel it, your team's going to feel it, and you're going to feel it, which is going to make you feel hopeless, isolated, and alone.
Oh, man. Catapult the Commission's family. If you're not press rewind on that, you need to hear that again. We got Stephen Scoggins with us, the award-winning, successful, serial multi-million-dollar entrepreneur. He's the host of the hit podcast Unstoppable. So be sure we're putting the links down in the show notes. Go get connected with the podcast. Get connected with Stephen. We'll have all those links down in the show notes. So thank you guys for listening in. Now, Stephen, you're just wrapped up sharing this really a mental approach to let's reframe the way entrepreneurs think about their business venture. And hearing you say that, I can't help but look at myself because, I feel sometimes, not even feel sometimes, I feel like there's an alignment sometimes that I'm the avatar with some of the content you speak to, like in those early stages, right? I would argue early stages up to your first million, like everything is just like P&L revenue, but how you're breaking it down makes sense because I have found that there's certain tasks that will take a long time if I allow any ounce of distraction to hit me. And do you have any hacks or tricks to start that, because it's easy to say eliminate the distractions. We can all say that, but to actually implement that, like I look at it like right now I'm in my office, doors closed, no one can see me. So I can say, hey, I'm eliminating distractions, but I can also be on my cell phone. I can also have, ESPN popped up. I can have a bazillion other things distracting me. Do you have any hacks or recommendations or things you did to in those early stages to eliminate some of those distractions?
The answer is yes. I'll
Mhm.
also tell you that actually 0 to 3 million is considered very much early stage,
I'm in. Sign me up.
right? Um, and to that end, the thing that I did was I started holding myself accountable to my dreams.
Mm.
So I got two choices throughout the course of a day. I can take whatever time, whatever spare time I can drum up, or whatever committed time I can focus in on. And I'm the one that chooses. I'm the one that chooses whether or not ESPN's even on the TV. If there's a TV to get it there, I'm the one that chooses whether or not my cell phone is in a desk drawer somewhere where I can't hear it ding and buzz. Or, someone like myself who's on a Mac most of the time, I can hit do not disturb or focus or whatever, so I don't get distracted. How many times I check my email, you know? So I think part of it is holding yourself accountable to your dreams. Like if you really say you're dreaming and you give anything to do X, Y, and Z, are you really doing anything to obtain X, Y, and Z? Or are you not holding yourself accountable and allowing yourself to slide a little bit here? Because I did this really well. I did this really well. I did this really well. Yeah, that can wait till tomorrow. Like you got to start holding yourself accountable. And I think the other thing that I mentioned that is you got to have these more committed time slots. So I check my email 3 times a day
Okay.
on average. I'll carve out a window of time, normally 20 or 30 minutes to go through and answer emails. You even knew this when we were trying to schedule the podcast, right? Like you
Yeah.
sent it over. I saw the email, but I didn't respond back right away. Right. Because I was committed to what I was focused on in that moment. It wasn't that I didn't love my brother because I love my brother. I just wanted to make sure that I was focused in on that thing. We got major launches coming, major events coming, and that stuff needs my attention. Right. The other thing I would say is make sure you're focused on the thing that's going to create the most leverage. One of the things I love about construction is there's always tools and there's always things. And you can take a board and drive a nail down halfway through the center of the board and then try to pull it out with your hand and you can't pull it out. Okay. However, if you grab a small little crowbar or something like that, grab it, that nail will pop right out like nothing. Right. So make sure that the thing that you're prioritized, the thing that you're focused on is a leverage point. Right. If the most important thing you need to do is to prepare a budget for your company to succeed, right? It may not be the thing that you want to do, but because it creates the most leverage, I would rather do that than answer an email,
Mm.
right? Most of us, what we like to do is we want the instant gratification. So we like to do the easy thing first. I'm a huge fan of do the hard thing first. I've also discovered when you do the hard thing first, all the other things become easier, just in general, right? The number one, whatever the most hardest thing is, in fact, I would dare say the challenge to your audience right now would be whatever the number one thing is that you most don't want to do is probably the very thing that is your leverage point. It's probably the thing you need to do so you can get it off your plate so you can get back to creative and innovative and get yourself moving forward. So those are the things that I personally do. I try not to say anything that I don't personally do or try to commit to something that I don't personally do, but those are the things that I personally do.
That hits me hard. The thing don't want to do is probably the biggest leverage point. I go to the early stages of starting my personal brand and starting Catapulting Commissions. And the thing that I didn't do for the longest, and I kind of just ran it by the fly, was like the standard operating procedures for a one-person personal brand as a company. It was like, in my mind, I knew we did this. And it wasn't until I finally sat down and I was like, you know what? I'm going to list everything that I do. I'm going to record it. I'm going to put it on Loom. I'm going to break it down. And every time I need to make an adjustment or pivot, I'm going to just log it in this Google Drive. And that's where I hold my SOPs. The response I got from my staff was this made life easier for them. There was no more going back and forth. It was very much.
That's because they didn't have to read your mind anymore.
Yeah. But it took me 2 years to do it. So I wish in the earlier stages. So now, as you're saying that, I look at this point now where I'm at a point in my business where, okay, I'm trying to crack that next level. And I'm like, okay, what is that thing that I need to get done that's holding me back? And so it does create leverage points. Now, leverage points that you're discussing here, what are your thoughts here on either outsourcing these leverage points doing it yourself? Like at a certain point, because we all have things in our business that I
Hmm.
would say are a leverage point.
Yeah. Well, it really depends on what phase you're in. So if you're in the startup phase, you're going to be doing a lot more on your own than
Okay.
you're going to have the resources to then bring in teams. Okay. So let's assume you're middle of the road. Okay. Let's assume maybe you've got some revenue coming in, you have a need for a team member or two. Um, in that mode, then you're going to have to actually identify what your true strengths and gifts are. And then what are the things that you're really not as good at? So I had this conversation today. I'm looking at some possible acquisitions and some stuff I'm looking at. And in talking to some of the folks that I was talking to about some of these deals I'm looking at for acquiring companies and stuff like that, one of the things that came up is like, they're like, well, you seem very self-aware. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, most people can't articulate what they're really good at versus what they're not. I said, well, that's because I learned it the hard way. Like I learned that by mistakes, meaning somebody else was better at doing something than I was better at doing it to begin with. Like cost me money, cost me time, energy. Me not letting go of that cost me time and energy and money. Okay. So first of all, I think you have to take an inventory of who you are, what you're really good at. So I'm really good at strategy, vision, and getting stuff off the ground. Okay. I'm decent at operations. Okay. So if I'm looking at a hierarchy, I'm looking at, okay, this is the thing that I'm really good at. This is the thing I need to take ownership. This is where I create the biggest leverage point for the business. Okay, I'm good at operation. This is going to be something I will probably have to do for a little while, but as soon as I'm able to, I want to hire someone or subcontract someone who is much stronger than that. Okay. Now, typically subcontracting any type of resource or any type of position is going to be the first step before you bring on a full-time team member. One, because of liability, right? So liability from the state, you got to worry about payroll, you got to worry about payroll taxes and FICA and Social Security and did I hire them well and all the things that kind of go into that. Where subcontractors, I'm paying you this price to do this thing. Okay. So in the startup phase, it's mostly you. In the testing phase, it's going to be mostly subcontractors. In the investing phase, now hopefully, if you've done your due diligence wisely, you have spent the time creating the SOPs and getting stuff out of your head so people don't have to kind of guess what you're thinking. Now you're ready to actually have that internal team member. So it really depends on where you are in the stage of the journey itself. I can tell you that you cannot use the startup mentality and ever expect to be in the investing and scaling category. It will never work. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs who are in their own way because they don't relinquish control. Like, well, if I let go of this, it's going to fall apart. Actually, dude, do that. I'm gonna tell you right now, like, Jane over here actually does that thing better than you do. If you just trust her to do it, let her do it. Like, it'll have a higher level of performance. But they have an identity that's tied to it. But if I let it go, then the business isn't about. And here's what I'm going to tell you about business is if you're in the business just so it benefits you, you're in the wrong business. Your business needs to benefit the marketplace and your community and your team. That's why you build a business. You cannot create a legacy that will outlive you if you're so focused on you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, play that again, guys. That's a good one. I love how you consistently go back, and it's kind of a theme through this episode we've been discussing, right? There's always this greater person, this greater need for the
Mm-hmm.
business, and I'm hearing the vehicle really is the business to serve the audience, the people, the employees.
Mm-hmm.
And what really hit me with you, Stephen, was that when I had the opportunity to go and speak at one of your events a little over a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, and
Been too long. We need to do it again.
yeah, I'm ready. I need to come back out, and yeah, I definitely got to come back out. What struck me when I saw your interaction with your staff, like we had a day, Catapult Mission Family, we had a day, we were supposed to have a live event with a lot of people, and it just happened to snow incredibly. There was a million reasons Steven could have been frustrated. There was a million reasons, right, that the event didn't go to the way it was planned. But what I saw that day was the genuine care for the people you were serving, who were both your employees or subcontractors that were there, and then the people that were speaking, and then the
Mm-hmm.
people that showed up. It never faltered. Like, hey, here's who we are to give. And through my observation of you giving, it makes sense, which I kind of known why you're so successful. But as an entrepreneur, at times it's hard because we want to give, but sometimes we got to be in a position to give. But
Hmm.
it's a fine balancing act. But what you described to me is like my North Star. If I just keep
Yeah,
focused on
well,
my
yeah.
North
I mean, they're
Star,
working. There's two stages of giving. There's
okay,
giving of self and there's giving of resources,
okay,
right? Most entrepreneurs can't come out of the gate and immediately start giving of resources. Okay. But you can give of self in the way, because your business is nothing more than you on credibility, right? So you are your business in many respects. Okay. So if you don't have a sincere desire to serve the people who are going to buy from you, they'll buy from you once and they'll never buy from you again. Okay. However, if they see a sincere desire that you're truly trying to help them and whatever that is, if you're building a house for them, you're selling them pharmaceuticals, you're, gosh, making a digital course, speaking on behalf of them, like all of that, the most successful people that I see on the planet that literally do the best job are the people who care the most about service. Like they're
mm,
thinking through, one of the things I try to do with my events and stuff like that when we host events, whether I'm just one of mine or whether I'm doing one for Ed Milet or somebody like that, is I want to think about the audience and what is going to tug at the audience's heartstrings. What's going to make them have their own aha, right? Because I can put any world-class thought leader on our stage and do an event. Okay. But if the thought leader is only interested in serving them, then the audience doesn't get served. And if the audience doesn't get served, then they have an empty promise fulfilled. And I never want my audience to have an empty promise that's fulfilled. I would rather them come in there and get one idea that changes the game. One idea, one concept, one strategy, one technique. It only takes one to make a rocket ship go. Just one, right? So if you don't have the heart of service at the core of everything that you do, then your audience, your clients, your team, all of them are going to see it. They're going to know, right? You can't hide that, right? Because either you're doing it or you're not doing it, right? I have had customers that I lost money on, right? Because the right thing to do was to backfill for a thing that popped up
mm.
that really was not their problem. It was we failed at service at some capacity. So great, Mr. Customer, you don't owe me for that right now. And you know what the crazy part is those customers always come back to try again. It's the craziest thing. And you would think, well, I just gave, it, our mutual good friend says it the best way. Anton Gunn says, make it right.
Yeah.
Make it right. If you have a servant's heart in business, team, family, all of that, you will make it right. You don't get home in time. You forget to text your wife or something like that, which I have done all of that and then some. Make it right. Like, hey babe, I totally screwed the pooch on this. What can we go do to have some fun together? You know what I'm saying? It's like, we so overcomplicate things as entrepreneurs and as people. Like we way overcomplicate it. Come at it with a heart of service, mean what you say, do what you say you're going to do, and everything else will work out.
Oh man, keep it simple, guys. Keep it simple. Keep serving. Make things right. And Stephen mentioned our mutual friend Anton Gunn. We had him on the show. I don't know, in its infancy. I think he was episode 4 or 5. Gonna reach out to Anton to bring him back on. But I have his little coin he sent me that said it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just it really hits. It's actually back in my corner, right underneath my book there, and it sits and it hits right because one from a customer, but two, how you just said it right now with your wife. I know that I've had to have that conversation with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I recently, I talk a lot about about my daughter on here and her venture of competitive taekwondo. She was super excited. Rankings came out. This whole thing. She came after school, poked in my office, and I had just got off a call where I had lost a customer, and so I brushed her off pretty hard, and I didn't even realize it. And then I saw her face and she walked away, and it was like that instant, like, oh, okay. And I'm only gonna have, there's that fine window of
Mm-hmm.
teenagers where they're like, they come to you because eventually they're just like, I don't know if I need you, Dad. I
Yeah.
can do it on my own. And it struck me, and it was this complex feeling where at the end I was like, you know what? I just need to go talk to her. I went up to her room and said, hey, dude, I'm sorry. I kind of messed up. Like I didn't hear you. It wasn't my
Mm-hmm.
intention. I'm not even gonna give you justification because what I did was wrong. I got teary eyed, and I'm like, but it was the right thing to do, and it
Mm-hmm.
brought our relationship significantly closer. So I always hearing you say that about your wife. I always thought about do the right thing for your customer, but do the right thing at home. Sometimes is kind of that
If
slap in
we
the face.
treated our family like customers, our families would be better served.
That is, yeah, absolutely. There's some truth and validity in that. So, man, well, I love this conversation, Stephen. A few minutes here. Unstoppable solutions, right? How does somebody, like, give us a little high level overview of what an unstoppable solution is, and if someone wants to like consume more of this discussion we had today, like, how do they get access to that as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Scoggins International is comprised of 3 lanes. Media creation. So we help a lot of folks create a lot of amazing media, everything from stage footage to social media stuff, all kinds of stuff. So we've stumbled our way into media creation. Then we have the events sector, which is us hosting events for other people like the Milets of the world.
Mm-hmm.
The Unstoppable Solutions portion is what we call our empowering education portion. And specifically for the year of 2023 and the first quarter or two of 2024, we are focused on our new initiative, which is the Unstoppable Startup. That's helping entrepreneurs go from that are typically between the $0 and $3 million range, actually double or triple the value of their organization and themselves within a 12-month time frame. And we do that by teaching them through all the silly things that entrepreneurs will do boneheadedly by accident. We teach them how to avoid that by giving them structures and strategies and principles to kind of do so. And I think the easiest way to kind of just kind of stay connected is to actually just go to StephenScoggins.com, unstoppable startuplive.com. All one word, unstoppable startuplive.com. StephenScoggins.com, Unstoppable Startup Live. That's it. So go there, check that out. You can always find me on Instagram as well.
Catapulting Missions family. We will have those links down in the show at StephenScoggins.com, UnstableSolutionsLive.com. And yeah, if you're driving in the car, be sure to go click those links. Now, Stephen, as we wrap up the show here, last thing, right? Big goal you're trying to accomplish over the next 12 months. Would you mind sharing with us? Just so we love to follow the journey and the venture of our guest on the show.
Yeah, I think our big 5-year goal is to take the Scoggins International brand, and we want to serve 1 million people within the next 5 years.
That's incredible. That is an incredible goal, and I love how you framed it on serve 1 million people, and it wasn't tied into a revenue amount, which it doesn't even shock me after having this conversation and knowing you on an intimate level. So I really, really appreciate that. Well, Stephen, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Can I get you back on the show in a couple of years? I'd love to see how things are going. Things have changed and all that fun stuff. Can I count on you for that?
You got the bat phone number. So anytime you need me, I'm here.
I appreciate it, brother. Well, Catapulting Missions family, it's the time of the show. You know what to do. Do me a favor. Go get connected with Stephen. Be sure to like this episode, comment, shoot me a DM. Let me know. Are you in a position of serving? Are you the entrepreneur who can serve with resources or serve with time? I'd love to hear some feedback on it. And I will see all of you next week.